So just 2 weeks ago, Bethesda finally released the Creation Club for Starfield, which is a place to download and install fan-made mods. Players who have the game are now able to start installing and playing with these in their playthrough. People have already begun making lists of the best mods to enhance your experience in the game. Skyrim came out over 12 years ago, and it still remains relevant today due to the modding community always adding fresh content. The same can be said of Fallout 4, with so many players adding new mods in order to spice up their playthrough, which in turn has allowed the game to remain relevant almost 10 years after its release. With the Creation Club finally coming to Starfield, it begs the question, will it manage to improve the game and help it grow? I was very critical of Starfield when it first came out due to many key features normally found in a Bethesda game being absent this time around. One of the biggest complaints from other fans online was the appearance of the NPCs and the lack of variety in character design. The NPCs had this weird facial expression where their eyes just, well, you can see. But then for a game set in outer space, there were only humans available. No aliens, opposed to a game like Mass Effect, which had different species of aliens, or even Skyrim, which had different races like Argonians and Khajiits. It was also boring and lacked personality. So I just recently installed a mod which updates the NPCs into alien characters. First of all, the character models look stunning, and the variety has been added in. It gives each NPC a bit of uniqueness as well as adding some variety. Not just that, but look, no weird eyes popping out anymore. So in one quick mod, one of the major complaints about Starfield was fixed. But could additional mods fix everything else that was lacking in Starfield? Can the Creation Club and mods save the game? Well, let's get into it and find out. Quick side note, I am a new channel, so if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I do single player video game analysis and release videos weekly. Anyway, back to the video. So let's start with what my major problem was with Starfield. For me, it was the concept of exploration. Exploration is a huge reason to play Bethesda games. The freedom to explore a whole map, go in any direction that you want, and explore the huge variety of dungeons and locations available. All of this content is usually handcrafted as well. Now if you look at a game like Skyrim or Fallout 4, what you have is a giant map to explore. It is entirely handcrafted and locations are fixed. They're not randomly generated and are placed strategically. As you explore the map, you'll run into different things such as towns. Towns are locations where NPCs are and you can gather quests, stay at the inn, visit a shopkeeper, among other things. Now Starfield still has these towns and they're actually bigger and better than ever. It's when you leave the towns that things start to drop in quality. Going back to Skyrim or Fallout 4, when you go across the map, you're going to run into dungeons, which are buildings that you can go into and explore. What's really important is that all of these dungeons are handcrafted and unique. You won't experience an exact same dungeon at another spot on the map. Each location will give a unique experience so that they're all worth visiting at some point. It pushes you to cover the entire map and explore every nook and cranny for secrets. If you haven't watched it yet, I did a whole video going into detail on these points, so if you want more context you can click the link in the description. But just to keep it simple, Starfield chose to go another way. They decided, rather than handcraft the world, the AI would procedurally generate the maps. So you would go pick a planet to land on and the AI would create a large gridded area for you to explore. This map will contain characteristics that the planet listed, for example, mountain landscapes, snowy terrain, or desert sand dunes. All of this was okay, but the problem is that the AI would then place random locations in this grid for the player to go and explore. Mainly, they would place landmarks, dungeons, and caves. So it sounds like Skyrim, right? Well, no. See, Skyrim had 198 dungeons and caves to explore. Again, all different, all handcrafted. Starfield only has 12. That's right, just 12. So it would slap down a couple of caves and a couple of space stations for you to explore. When you go to the next planet, you would get a different grid, but more than likely it would contain the exact same caves and space stations that you'd already explored. Not just that though, these locations on the grid were really spread out. Like, really spread out. It would take you ages to walk from one location to another by foot, and this led to people asking for vehicles to be added to the game. Now, this would be a nice addition, but it doesn't fix the root of the problem. The biggest issue with walking from one place to another is that there is nothing in between. Nothing of note, nothing to distract. It's literally like walking through an empty landscape for 5 minutes with nothing to appreciate on the way. Now, in Skyrim, let's say you have a quest to go to a cave that's the exact same distance as the grid on Starfield. The difference is that the world was handcrafted and beautiful to look at in Skyrim, opposed to the grids of Starfield, but more importantly, there were other dungeons, quests and events that you would cross along your path to your destination. These would distract you, but more importantly, it would keep you entertained along the way. It rewarded you for walking on foot as opposed to just fast traveling. It made the world feel alive and full of locations. In Starfield, you don't have that option, you have to walk to these other points of interest, and not only does it take a long time, but there's nothing to see on the way. Games like Fallout and Skyrim weren't about the destination, it was about the journey on the way. Starfield is only about the destination and there is nothing to do on the way. The journey, quite frankly, sucks. Now, the other thing is that the destination unfortunately sucks as well. There are 10,000 planets to visit in Starfield, which means there must be millions of these grids that you could explore. But there are only 12 dungeons available to select from. That is so disappointing. It means that after a couple of planets, you've pretty much explored everything that there is to see already. These things I've mentioned are by far, in my opinion, the biggest problems with Starfield and why people don't come back to it. When it comes to the towns, the quests and the gameplay, Starfield is decent enough. It certainly does enough to be considered a decent game, but Bethesda games, to me, have always been about the exploration, and this is the biggest letdown when it comes to Starfield. So, let's go back to the mods and answer the question, can mods save Starfield? The answer is yes, but it's going to take some serious commitment from the modding community. First of all, the game would require for a specific grid to appear when you land somewhere, as opposed to it always being randomly generated. Let's use the city of Atlantis as an example. The town is handcrafted and not AI generated. It looks spectacular and it's a joy to visit. Now when we zoom out, we see that the town is surrounded by wilderness. In this case, to my knowledge, it is auto-generated, so each time you land in Atlantis, the surrounding outskirts will always be different. In order for the modders to be able to successfully add good content, this would need to be fixed so that the grid surrounding the town is the same each time. So for argument's sake, let's say that that's been done and that the grid can be customized. If the modern community were now able to handcraft the terrain in this grid and make it all unique, they could create a world worth exploring. They could add waterfalls, lakes, small settlements, spots of forest, pathways. They could make it a unique map worth exploring. So now that we have the map built, it would be time to add in some dungeons. Now the 12 that Bethesda have supplied is astonishingly low. If a mod creator were to build, say, 5 unique space station dungeons, all handcrafted with environmental storytelling, and then 5 caves which also got the same treatment, they could then add them to the map in fixed locations. They would not be as spread out, but would all offer a reason for someone to visit them. Then they could add some unique NPCs and add some quests which are specific to this region. For example, a guy in a settlement on the top right of the grid could give you a quest to explore a cave on the top left of that same grid. He could say that he'd lost contact with his crew who went into the cave hunting a giant alien. We come into the cave and as we go deeper we keep finding the bodies of the missing crew members. At the very end of the dungeon we find the only survivor, but then the giant alien jumps out and we have a boss battle. We beat the boss, save the person, go back and complete the quest. This basic example is so much better than the Radiant quests that have been provided by Bethesda that have you tracking across the galaxy. You get a quest in one planet and then have to travel 100 light years away to go and do the actual mission. With this example, it's a unique story with unique characters and a dungeon just for that quest. just like it was set up in both Fallout and Skyrim. A good example of this is Outer Worlds. They would have small maps to explore on a planet. There would be a town, which would have NPCs to give the quests, and then you would go and explore the map and complete those activities and then return. This is Bethesda's model and it's always worked before. Starfield was the first time that they removed this and went for the procedural generated content. Now that's a lot of work to do for a modder though. It requires a handcrafted map, 10 different dungeons, character design, voice dialogue, quest writing, among other things. But if it were to happen, it would make this particular grid the best part of the whole universe to explore in that game. But that's only one grid, in a game that has 10,000 planets. But let's say 1,000 modders repeat this process 1,000 times and we get these mini world maps full of unique dungeons and quests to explore. Imagine how much enjoyment that would add to the game. It would be a dream, which unfortunately I think it is. When Todd Howard created Starfield, he referred to it as a modder's paradise, almost meaning that because the world was so empty, there was massive room for creativity and to add the content in ourselves. The map of Skyrim is pretty much full, so there isn't much room to add new buildings and such. In Starfield, they have the room to add their own entire worlds, but the question is it worth saving? With Starfield, the work required to add things like this is massive. Modders generally do all of this completely for free, and they do the work alongside full-time jobs. With games like Skyrim, they could add to the game. In Starfield, it would almost require them to actually build the game. Take a look at Fallout London, a Fallout 4 inspired mod. The team has managed to build a map larger than the whole of the base game. They've added over 100 quests, they've added districts, and basically just built an entirely new game. It's taken them over 5 years to do that, and it's still not even out yet. But that just gives you an idea of how much time we're talking about to build this handcrafted content for Starfield. Not just that, but the Fallout London team had to cancel their release after Bethesda dropped an update for Fallout 4. Often these updates crash the mods completely, so even if this process started to take place, any update from Bethesda could send it back to square one, and no one wants to work on something for years, for free, knowing that this could happen. So back to the question, can mods save Starfield? The answer is yes, but is it really worth it? As of now, the mods that are available allow you to change the NPC's appearances, build new houses, or change companion dialogue options. They are nice features, but they won't change the game much overall. They're additions, not changes. It will still be the same game, just with a few new features and a fresh coat of paint. Those procedurally generated planets will always be there, and so will those same 12 dungeons. The walk to them will always be dull, even if you can make it a faster trip by adding vehicles. But there are many talented modders out there, and this might be a possibility. Even just the addition of a few handcrafted maps could add so much. Starfield's new expansion, Shattered Space, will be a town surrounded by handcrafted content, so Bethesda already sees what the problem is. But those other 10,000 planets are currently vacant, and all that empty space will take a long time to fill. Is it worth that much work? All I know is that Fallout 4 sold 25 million copies and is rated very highly. Skyrim sold 60 million copies and is rated highly as well. Both have handcrafted maps and unique dungeons, and Starfield opted not to do that, but both Fallout and Skyrim owe a lot of their success to their modding community. Many of these mods were created for utility reasons, patching numerous bugs that were left in the game by Bethesda, whilst also improving the game's usability and character movement. Other mods added new quests and characters, or updated the game's graphics and animations. Mods enhanced the games and made them better. Skyrim Anniversary Edition came out 10 years after the initial release, and it was the same game, but just filled with mod creations from fans. Fallout 4's most recent update added new content, again, all of it made by fans. Modders have been saving Bethesda for so long now, and Bethesda have profited from their hard work. Modders could come in now and rectify Starfield, making it the game into what it should have been from day one. But does Bethesda deserve that? For modders to clean up the mess? for someone else to build their game for them? I'm not so sure. So yes, technically mods can save Starfield, I just don't think it can realistically happen, and even if it did, do Bethesda deserve it? What lessons would be learned if modders completed the game for them? The mod community has saved Bethesda's game for decades now, but I just think this time is asking too much from the creation team. The thing is with Starfield is that there's too much missing that needs to be added. Anyway, that's it for this one. What do you think? Do you think mods can save Starfield? Am I suggesting the right changes, or am I way off? Or do you love Starfield how it is already? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing as well. I'm a new channel and I upload weekly videos covering single player role playing video games. Thanks for watching. Av out.